10, 9.
And we're live. Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay if you watch it from the website there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, in any case, yeah, thank you, Hyena, for joining me today. I appreciate you making the time, especially with the time difference here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I when I first stumbled upon your pieces, especially the one that you have pinned here, and then I read that you're a 2D cell animator, and I was like, oh, this guy must really either like hate himself or have or have an absolute love for the game, because from what I've heard, cell animation, 2D or otherwise, is a pain in the ass to say the least.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a long story, but I ended up in I simply love it. I think it's, I don't know, favorite form of expression, I guess, especially animation. But yeah, it's I don't know. I think once you get used to it, it isn't that hard. I think it's hard to start and difficult to master, but I don't know. It's fun. People usually go like super crazy, super difficult, or like see those articles where animators like died from overworking. But I think in general, it's a really cool job, and it's fun to do, relaxing to do. But
Fair enough. Now, in terms of the, because I don't know the distinctions between different animation styles, but cell animation, from my understanding, is you're drawing out like every frame or every other frame, correct?
yeah, you're drawing basically every frame. It depends. Like if it's 24 FPS, you're animating something on ones, which means like all the 24 frames in a second, or you do 12 every second frame. It depends on what you're exactly trying to do. I usually hate animating on ones because that's like super irritating to do 24 drawings in like a second. But yeah. I don't know. I mostly animate on threes. The French animate on threes a lot of the time. But
There's
I
a specific
really
reason
dig
for
it.
that?
They're actually it's a bit more graphic. It's a bit more clean movement, you could say. In the West, for example, usually a lot of people animate like it's like the gamer culture, like 60 FPS, 6 million FPS. But I don't know if you check out these like or Japan and animation in anime, it's like really deliberate frames. So sometimes a second might have just 3 frames drawn, but they're spaced so perfectly that you don't even notice it. Like, so it's an art to reduce your frame count, I guess. I'm trying to learn how to do that to get more graphic, cool sort of stuff, I guess.
And by reduce your frame count, you mean like essentially decrease the amount of frames that like you're drawing per second, or?
Yeah. It's sort of, yeah. It's like almost feels like an optical illusion when someone does it perfectly. So I usually animate something. When I started, I animate like all 24 frames in 1 second, and that would look like super flowy, but it would be overkill. Super experienced animators use just enough frame. So sometimes it's just 3 frames in a second instead of 24. But as I said, you don't even notice it because they space them out so perfectly. Like sometimes it just looks like you wouldn't notice ever that it's like 3 or 4 drawings, but they look amazing. So yeah.
I see. So it's not even necessarily that like you pick a standard, like you said, like how the French do it every 3 frames, and then that's how you that's your standard for the entire piece. That there's actually some people that are so good at this that they will actually choose like which seconds need like how many frames drawn compared to other seconds in the scene to get
Oh
like a
yeah,
different type of motion to it.
100%. Do you also have, for example, Miyazaki? I think he introduced something really cool. Is like in 1 second, you have the background that's animated at like, I don't know, 3 FPS or something. So really just like a few drawings. Then the main figure, its character is animated on once, so all 24 frames, because then your eye is gonna look at the character a bit more, if you know what I mean. So that's called frame mixing, and you're mixing different frame rates depending on what's going on in your scene, and then stuff gets like insanely crazy. But yeah, it's all fun. It's all super fun. And then like people tell you, yeah, you can't AI do that. Then you're like, nah, not really. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much variation to it. I'm guessing like when you first started doing this kind of work, as many artists do when they're a kid, there was a bunch of like different animation styles that you tried out. I'm guessing you played with Flash a lot.
Oh yeah. I played with Flash, but I mean I didn't animate. I started animating like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I guess. Before that, I mean, I finished design school. I was a designer. I did branding. I did a lot of that sort of stuff, and was drawing like since I was a kid. But it all sort of exploded in, I don't know, 2020, 2021, when I started like just like said fuck it to everything else, just started animating. But
Okay, so like you made that decision during COVID, but as a kid, like was there like you just happened to see like some kind of animation that you fell in love with, or is it just kind of like you stumbled upon it, like as you said, after designer school?
So I was watching anime my whole life. I loved animation my whole life, but it was never like my mental mode was never like I'm gonna be an animator, especially in Croatia. That would be crazy, like watching Cowboy Bebop or something, or Dragon Ball Z, thinking I'm gonna work on that or something. But yeah, in any case, I had my own sort of solo studio in 2019. Then I did. It was a successful sort of few years. Then my card got hacked. Then I thought I lost all my money that I saved up. All my bigger clients liquidated their companies. I remember that day like it was yesterday, because I had a panic attack of my life.
Wow.
And then I sort of realized from now on you're never stressing about money or clients or anything. Like find out what's your real passion, like what do you really want to do. And then I said to myself, you want to animate, then just go fucking animate. So yeah, that's when I started. But I never animated before that. Used to paint a lot, had an Instagram with like landscape paintings a lot, but that died then. But yeah. And yeah, this road's been super fulfilling. I loved every minute of it. So it's like, I think it was the right decision. So
Yeah, I mean, it got you this far, right?
yeah. I mean, it's also an interesting crowd. I really love the people that are other animators. I really love hanging out with them. They're sort of nerds, and they aren't like. This might be too generalizing, but when I was a lot more in design, you had a lot more pretentious crew. A lot of people. Like I really didn't like that sort of group I surrounded myself with when I started animating and interviewing other animators and like talking, hanging out. I realized like these people are super down to earth, like, and amazing people. So that also hooked me as well. But I mean, yeah, you're bringing life into something, animating something frame by frame with, like, you can do anything you want in the world. Like, you can animate whatever the hell you want. Like, you're not limited by anything at all. Whatever you can sort of technically make, like, you can do it, which is super crazy. I know we're in the age of tech, like AI, 3D, this and that, but it's actually like, I don't know, when you learn to draw and when you learn to animate, it's super free. Just going with the flow, you can do whatever you want to do. So I don't know, something super freeing in that for me. So yeah, I think the career changed me for the better as well. So yeah.
Interesting. And when you mentioned that thing about the designers, the first thing that came to mind was that I feel like as a designer, there's a requirement in that role for you to have kind of like a singular voice in terms of your style and be um, absolutely unique in the way that you approach your work. And maybe it's that attitude that kind of fosters that very, as you said, like superficial mindset to it.
I think a lot of it was like really stuck in the sort of conceptual sort of approach to doing things. I'm not even necessarily like there's a lot of amazing designers, talented people that I know as well. So not
Oh, of
all of them,
course.
of course, but I've had the that that almost illustration or animation was looked down upon. Yes, I remember being at a party and one designer there, a pretty famous one from my area, and he saw me and he was like, "Oh, you're doing animation, like." And he said something, and I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Why would you sort of downgrade like that for somebody?"
Wow.
Then I was like, "Okay." Because I mean, technically, I would even say it's a lot harder to animate in a way, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, but design has it. But I just felt more at home with animators. Like I don't know, I've been talking to animators recently, people that are doing it for like 20 plus years now, like real monsters of the
Mm-hmm,
craft.
mm-hmm.
Like I'm nothing compared to them, and I talk to them and ask for advice. They give input, and I learn. And they're super down to earth. Like some of them don't even have an Instagram account. Like some don't even have a social media presence at all.
Oh, wow.
And, and they're like one of the best animators, like booked for like 2-3 years. Super insanely talented people. And they're like, it's just a job. I'm just like, which I love so much. They're um, they're looking to improve their work. Their work is sort of their life. And that's really important to them, and that's why I really love it. They're not there to be like sort of the influencer, I don't know what, if you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean.
Yeah, yeah, I
They're
understand.
really, really, yeah. So yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if that's in any way related to the fact that animation is such a painstaking process, and there's so much work that goes into not just actually doing the drawing, but just learning all of these different things about, like as you said, cutting different frames and being very selective with that, with your background, foreground, all that. And maybe it's because it's such a humbling exercise that you can't help but just like be constantly reminded, like, okay, I don't know shit. I I'm kind of making it up as I go along. It's looking good. I hope the product is in the end it works out. But because of how challenging it is, it's
I mean,
it's like a constant reminder, you know.
yeah, I never thought about that in that way. You said it now, but yeah, what you say makes total sense. I totally agree. I mean, animation will definitely humble you. That's for sure. Like, you're always, I think, in a lot of creative jobs, you're always like you don't know shit, which means you're improving, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
animation really is humbling in a way because you have the 12 principles you gotta apply. You have to think about character, about emotions, about colors. You have to do prep work because if you just go blind animating, screw yourself. So you really have to be meticulous. You really have to. You can't. There's nothing you can't avoid the hard work in there. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you're gonna suffer like 100%, which is sort of what brings us together. So yeah, I think what you say, there's definitely there. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because personally, I've never animated anything myself besides like some basic Shockwave Flash for school when I was young. And I did I did try my hand at claymation a couple of times, which is probably the closest thing to it. and it was not any good. Obviously, I was a kid and I didn't keep up with it, but it really put into perspective like all the movies that I'd been watching, like whether it's Pixar or Disney or what have you, all the animation that goes into that, just how much work it takes to make it, to not only draw those frames, but then to actually make it look so good and have a quality that lives on for generations, that people fell in love with as a kid and now as an adult they can see it. It's just, yeah, when I actually tried my hand at it, I was like, "Oh, this is actual effort. There's actually a lot of effort that goes into this. This is not a joke. This animation stuff is actually, it's really fucking hard."
Yeah.
And it's incredible to see shows now. Like recently, I don't know if you heard about this new anime from the Cowboy Bebop team called Lazarus.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep.
Yeah, great series. I just got caught up yesterday. I think the last episode is premiering on the 21st here. Or I don't even know if it's the last episode, but in any case, when I saw it and I just saw just some of the fight scene animations, I was like once again reminded, like, okay, yeah, this stuff is no joke. Like it's all too easy to just like get complacent and to watch like anime these days and be like, oh yeah, that's cool, like all the motion and whatnot. But every now and then there's just something that comes along that just kind of blows it out of the water. And this series by far, like the fighting scenes are incredible. I have no notes.
Completely agree. I saw it. I saw that recently. There's also a show by I think Joe Bennett, Common Side Effects, that's
Yes.
going
Oh
on.
my god, that,
Yeah.
big fan.
I
Big
mean,
fan.
he sent me a DM like, I love your work or something like a few weeks ago, like Joe.
No
Uh,
way.
yeah, and I was like, holy shit, you gotta be fucking with me. Like, what the hell? But yeah, on Insta was
Wow.
like, yeah, crazy. But yeah, I think it's getting super popular recently. And I think I don't know. I understand that people. It's been the 3D for a long time, but I think 2D is getting super popular, and the competition is also getting super tight as well. Um, so yeah, I don't know. One thing I really liked as well is that people share advice with each other here, even though it's sort of, you would think that it's all competition because there's only so many gigs and so many animators, but all of us share everything we know with each other. So that's also one big aspect that I really love. But for animators, I don't know, man. I think some animators should be like superstars. Like we should be interviewing them. No, not like myself, but if you see, I don't know. There's Light Soul, Slava Light Soul. He's one of the best FX animators. Naoki Araiza. Um, there's some people that are hidden in the shadows that did amazing stuff for amazing shows. People that animated for One Piece, and we never think about, okay, someone really sat down and animated this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they go a bit underappreciated because a lot of them are really cool people, and I don't know. I'd love to see them more in the center stage, some because they animate all of this. Attack on Titan, One Piece. They help build like huge brands, huge cultures, and I don't know. I feel like they sometimes get a bit moved to the side of everything. So yeah.
Oh, 100%. They definitely don't get the recognition they deserve. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of animated um like movies or shows or what have you that I've seen in my life, and like there's always just at the end when the credits roll this huge wave of
Oh
people
yeah.
that like all their names that worked on it. It reminds me, it's like, yeah, this is not possible for like for one person to do, and most of these people will not get the recognition that they deserve, as is common for many artists. But it really puts it into scale just how big these productions are, because Common Side Effects has easily got to be like one of my favorite animated shows in the last little while. His other one that he did, Scavenger's Reign, have you seen that one?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Oh, beautiful. I
Yeah.
it every single episode, it I didn't know what was gonna happen from second to second. It was an absolute masterclass of, like, world building in places that you absolutely did not expect to appear, and, that show does not get the love that it deserves, 'cause the moment I discovered that and Joel and other, works by Joel Bennett, I was like, "Holy shit, this is taking it, like, once again, to another level." It's just that this is kinda like a once in a lifetime creation.
Yeah, yeah. And the show getting canceled, biggest heartbreak I ever
I
felt. But yeah,
know! That I was hoping for a
yeah,
second season with the setup that they were doing, but even on its own, it stands very well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely recommend everyone watching Scavenger's Reign and probably Primal as well. Primal is by Gendy Tartakovsky. He's the guy that made Samurai Jack as well. Those two shows, like, perfect, great colors, great animation, everything's spot on. Like, you can dislike the style or just kind of like it or really like it, but technically I think it's like amazing. Both are like super amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen clips from Primal. I haven't sat down to watch it, but even from what I've seen, like once again, it's as you said, it's in similar. Like you can see echoes of like Samurai Jack and the animation style that was used in that, and once again, just an absolute like masterclass in how it's
yeah,
done. I mean, even just like these sequences here for the trailer, I could not imagine like how much effort, how much time it would have taken to do all this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Something's happened. Like, I've seen too many insanely good shows recently that are. I mean, even Arcane. Arcane is 3D animated, but the FX animations are 2D. And I know a lot of people that worked on the 2D for Arcane, like total monsters in animation as well. So I don't know. I feel like everything's booming, but I check out the Reddit. Everyone's impressed, but in my experience, everything is booming and it's amazing. And I love to see like indie studios, people with not necessarily huge funding, doing all this amazing stuff. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I loved Arcane too. My favorite like aspect of its design, I'd say, is I mean, it's just as you said how they blended 2D and 3D together, um, and how you can just I mean, you can watch that show. I probably wouldn't recommend it like frame by frame because it would take you ages. But every single, just about every single frame in there is like a painting on its own, and
Yeah, for sure.
combined together, it's just I've rewatched it I think twice now. It is nothing short of incredible. I highly recommend that that people go see it. It's even if you don't like the story or whatever, just for the visuals alone, it absolutely insanely beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually there's Maxime Naud doing FX there. There's a lot of guest artists that are amazing animators. Naoki Araiza, Nikita Shapalov. There's like, I don't know. All three shows are like, it's it's kind of scary to me because it's not only consistently good, it's consistently amazing. All three shows, and that's super hard to do. That, like, I mean, visually, like story wise, whatever you want to say, you would think do it, but visually, like, I'm blown away always. So I analyze a lot of those shows. A lot of both my colleagues do as well, building a visual repository of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, because usually like with 3D animation or like when it comes to these kind of shows, I don't typically watch them just because not because like they're they don't seem impressive, but there's just something about the style sometimes that is lacking in 3D, or you could tell that it was just a lot of it is smoothed over. But Arcane is unique in that because it doesn't. It's just you know what I'll say it this way. Maybe it's just not the right way, but it's so textured. Like everything
Hmm.
is, you could tell it's 3D, but it has like a real feel to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's basically what the impression that I get from it.
Yeah, so recently there's been an effort to kind of mix more and more 3D. A lot of it's been few recent years, people pulled again like toon shaders from somewhere. And yeah, they sort of work, but Arcane really won because they sort of can paint not only on the 3D characters, but also their shadows. The backgrounds are sometimes hand painted as well. The FX is 2D. So it's a really, really detailed sort of blend between 3D and 2D, which makes it really look like graphic and look really, really cool. But yeah, there's a certain 3D look. I think there's been something weird recently. So I watched Fantasia, the old Fantasia movie from like 80 years ago or something, and it still looks amazing. Like it still looks amazing to me. And I saw I think it's the first Toy Story or something, and it's like visually wasn't that great, which made me think like, does 2D hold something that feels a bit timeless to me that 3D doesn't? So in 10 years, is some 3D show we watch today gonna look like worse, and Scavenger's Reign is gonna look amazing? So that's something I'm thinking about recently. And why would that? But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. And the funny thing about Toy Story, actually, I don't know if you know this, it's a little bit of trivia, but they when they were actually animating that movie, there was at one point, I forget how this happened, but um all of their drives were wiped due to like some kind of like a system error, and they were near the end of like animating the movie, and the studio was freaking out because they're like, oh my god, we've dumped millions into this, we had all these teams working for all these months, like what the fuck are we gonna do? And then it turns out an employee that had been I think she just had her kids, so she was spending a lot of time like working from home as well. She had been taking her work home, so I guess some of the drives or just some of the data that she had um, ended up actually saving the production, because now like she was able to bring all that stuff back because it wasn't like connected to the the network that they had there or whatever, and they were able to rescue the movie just because some worker had taken it upon herself to just like take some of that stuff home.
That's crazy, man. Jesus, that's super crazy. I hope she earned the million.
Well, funny enough, there was a story I think about a year or two ago that she actually got fired by Disney. So
That's a very Disney move. Yeah, that makes that makes sense. God knows what else she has at home. What other original content? I'm sure she's gonna be okay financially. But yeah.
yeah, I didn't hear about the story until years later, but that is man, that is one hell of a lucky move, because from what I remember, wasn't it Toy Story that kind of helped launch like Pixar's like the animation studio as a whole?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. It was definitely a run where Pixar was doing a lot of unique stuff back then. That Disney sort of definitely wanted to get in that a bit more. I think then 3D was really new, and everyone was super used to 2D, so there was sort of a shift there. Usually, people think that it takes more time to do a movie in 2D, I guess, than in 3D, or that it's harder to do it in 2D, but neither is true. I feel like the thing where 3D wins is that you can do a lot of iteration. So once you have a 3D model or something, you can use it in a new movie, or like change the model a bit and that sort of stuff. In 2D, like redoing a character when the movie is done is gonna be a fuck ton of work. So I think yeah. And now I'm seeing sort of, because everyone got super used to 3D now, so it always goes through cycle, and I don't know.
Yeah, and it actually
That's
looks.
why.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No. That's why I was thinking a lot about AI recently, because I don't know. I was thinking if it's amalgamating all the content that's already there, how unique can you go because Arcane did something unique. I don't think you can really generate that. And that's sort of what brings real profits and viewership, like really unique approaches to visuals. And it's super hard to do, and a lot of experiment you need to do. So I don't know. I want to see what the future brings in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of generating like new IP, I don't know how good AI is currently at doing that because, as you said, it's taking inspiration from all the training data that it's based on. But if you take an existing IP, because it's like as you said, like after you're done with the 2D movie, how like your ability to reuse the same characters in the drawings is just that much harder compared to a 3D movie. So maybe with generative AI, you could take like a 2D film that was made and then use that as like part of the training data, and now you're still able to like have the same characters and manipulate them or the background or what have you, the scenery, in whichever way you want. Maybe it would be useful for that, for doing like reshoots and whatnot, or any kind of like sequels. But in terms of like coming up with new ideas, yeah, I think that's like borderline AGI kind of stuff when you're actually having like something new created from that.
Yeah, for sure. I saw an AI doing Tom and Jerry because there's really a ton of like content from Tom and Jerry. So it was a bit easier to feed the AI model all that. But even then, like I mean, for the general public, okay, it's probably gonna work. But in the animation sense, so as I said, when we're animating, we're thinking about frames, secondary action, primary action. If he moves, will the tail move? Why will the tail move in a certain way? Even the storyboard is like you have to understand the space you're in, so it has to make sense. Where is the house? Where is the backyard? Is it in suburbia? Is it in town? So a lot of logical stuff still aren't there. But for the general public, I think it's sort of okay, yes. But yeah, I don't know. I think something about retakes, as you said, could be happening. But yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of shitty 3D animation, you ever hear of the story called or the show called VeggieTales?
Nope. VeggieTales. Love it.
Yeah, this is it was early, I think. Man, it must have been either late 90s or early 2000s. This was an American Christian CGI animated series, where they used vegetables to tell stories from the Bible. Yeah,
My friend's gonna love this. Yeah.
it's super old school, and you can tell like just by the animation how they did it. But I would be interested to see like what their stack was for how they were actually making this happen, because it was very very rudimentary, very very basic. Like you could clearly tell that it was definitely not Pixar quality. It was enough for us kids, but no, I remember seeing these some of these movies growing up. But it reminded me of like kind of like that early Pixar style with Toy Story.
Oh yeah. I mean, today you also have like I don't know. If you go to YouTube and see what everyone watches, there's like 50 million views. Probably kids looking at like a horrible 3D render of a tiger in a helicopter. Then the helicopter lands. Then there's an elephant in the helicopter. Then the helicopter lands, and it's like a brain rot video of like sometimes horrible 3D. That I'm like, I don't know. And then I try to realize why does it have 100 million views? So it's a weird thing. I think there's an industry there currently in some stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, because it looks like here it says that they used soft image 3D, which I would guess is a very very old software.
Soft image 3D. Oh,
Oh wow,
very old. Yeah. Oh, then I'm impressed.
that is wow. Okay, The screen is the you just can tell by the dimension. The screen's not even 1920 by 1080. Like,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Wow. And they managed to make movies from this. That's wow. That's kind of incredible.
Yeah, like an abandoned and discontinued software, as far as I know.
Yeah, this looks
As
very retro.
says it's a software that out of its time was used in films and games. 1995, bought by Microsoft, then Autodesk, 35 million, and then it's gone. Huh.
Interesting. What do you what do you use these days to do most of your work?
So I used to do a lot of stuff in Calipeg on the iPad because I like to, I don't know, move around while animating. But I got this big ass tablet recently, and I started using Toon Boom, which is the industry standard for 2D animation, but they don't have a payment system for Croatia. So I was kind of experimenting. I actually write article what software to use, but I end up using like Blender. I like it the most from all the softwares for 2D cell animation. Yeah.
Blender for
is
2D
like,
cell animation?
yeah. I was experiment. I worked in Blender for like a long, like since primary school. I worked in Blender. My brother got me into it. And then I saw a ton of updates done in the past few years with the grease pencil tool that does like basically for drawing with a tablet. And then I started animating Blender. And then I realized like, shit, this is on par with Toon Boom. And Toon Boom costs like almost $3,000 if you want to
Jesus.
buy an indefinite license. So Blender being free and being this awesome to animate by frame, I don't know. I kind of, I'm gonna stick to Blender, but I can't commercially Blender. Like usually you get told what to work in, so you do that. But for my own work, I try to stick to Blender because it's something super weird going on there because you have everything, almost everything Toon Boom has. So for animating, but you also have all the 3D, the nodes and everything. So you could do your 2D animation, then, for example, make the line work become like 3D meat or something, like whatever you want. And then you get like super crazy results with everything. So, yeah,
Interesting.
definitely
Okay.
love Blender. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have been able to guess that just from your pieces here that that these were made in Blender. So do you just like make a flat canvas, or do you actually build out like the 3D world and then you go by layer by layer?
By the way, some older pieces that you see that look like painted, some of those are just hand painted frame by frame. Those were done in Procreate. Like before I knew how to animate, well, I just animate everything in Procreate, and it took like forever to do anything. So, but since in Blender I rarely, let's say, sometimes I do, but I rarely use 3D assets because I like to think about what my brain can do. Like, if I'm gonna try to do it by myself, will it end up looking more interesting or worse? And I don't know, it's a bit more challenging, and I'm trying to build a skill set to one day to just be able to open up a blank canvas and just animate without anything. And I'm not there yet, but I want to get there because that feels like ultimate freedom. But for gigs, for client work, we often use the assets because you have to keep perfect proportions on certain things. You gotta coordinate if it's like a longer video or a short movie you're working on. So then 3D assets help. But for my own personal work, I try to use them as least as possible. I think I used them like 3 times, something like that. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, because for this piece, like, yeah, this certainly looks like it would require, or at least like
Oh,
Blender would make
yeah.
it easier.
Yeah, that one was done in Blender. The face itself is a particular shading that I actually made in 3D. Then the stuff around it is just 2D fun, having fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's an older one. Wait, that's from 2022. Oh Jesus, time flies. But
Yeah, and that's interesting. Yeah, I would have never thought that that you'd be able to do something like that in Blender. I would have assumed it would have been in something like Procreate. Like I've toyed with Blender a couple times here and there, like doing the basic like donut tutorial. But like once again, just you get another piece of software that humbles you really quickly because then you realize like just how much customization there is, and it actually brings me to a question that that I was thinking about earlier when you were saying that as you're animating, there's all these things that you have to consider, whether it's the motion of the scene, the character, if there's any wind, how like the tail would move, and all that. Um, in terms of keeping all of those thoughts in your head as you're going through it, is it just a matter of like just trial and error? Like once you finish your piece, you think, "Oh, I don't like the movement here. It actually doesn't look that quite realistic. I want to change it like this." Or do you actually spend time like watching reference videos of, I don't know, like animals in motion or water in motion? Like how do you actually go about keeping that the not the realism but like the perspective of like fluidity and motion in mind as you do this? Because I figured like there's all these factors that you have to keep in your head uh as you do your work. How do you actually go about that?
so that's an interesting question. So I use a lot of visual reference. So for example, if I'm doing character animation or animal animation, I'm always gonna look at reference. Like a lot of the times you have it in your head already at this point, like you know how to do bipedal movement, quadrupedal movement, but you want to see a real reference images to see what reality is. Like why does the deer do something? Why, I don't know. A person that's disabled, how does a disabled person move, and why does his hip hurt? Does he stops every like 10 meters? Um, you try to analyze a bit more depth in there. For FX, for like visual stuff, I have also a repository of references of the people that I love, like work I absolutely love, and that sort of inspires me. But I never end up making quite as good as they do, because I guess you can't escape your own sort of signature way of doing things. But my biggest mistake was when I started, I was trying to animate everything at once. So I don't know if it was some example, let's say a deer. I'd try to animate the whole deer frame by frame. So, but no, you want to start with circles or something simple. You want to understand the general movement. Then you're going to later try to think a bit more about the legs, the offset, the head. Then when you do that, you think about the hair, the hairs, the tails. So segmenting your work for animating is crucial in my opinion. Like I've tried to do it all at once for a very long time unsuccessfully until I was finally honest with myself to like just segment it, start simple and work from there. Even explosions or like fire. The fire is just a wave. So you should just animate the wave. And then you punch holes in the waves, and then you give a bit of offset, then you add a bit of particles, and then you got fire. So, but if you just want to, for example, animate fire from nothing, it takes experience, a lot of experience. So yeah.
Okay, so when you say animating everything at once, it's better, as you said, to segment it out into different layers, like changing, like as the example of the deer that you use there, instead of like having it just move and then as it walks, you like animate also the tail or this or that. Like you focus on individual parts, and then like in the finality of the piece, all of the like movement that happens in unison, it makes sense. But trying to do that all at once, you're just gonna screw yourself over.
Yeah, definitely. So and also start with circles or like squares, something super simple. Like don't try to make a perfect drawing. You can draw. I can draw a lot of stuff that I can because animation is really technical. So just start super simple with literally circles. Move those circles around in a good way with good timing, with arcs, with sort of cool, relaxing ways, and then you can sort of connect stuff, then build like stuff from there. So definitely, yeah, you gotta sketch it out first, and you gotta analyze the stuff, and gotta segment it a bit more. For example, I was doing rotating heads a lot. First time I did it, I tried to draw a perfect face, then I'd rotate that, which was a mistake because I should have just made a circle with a line, rotated that, then make a nose, then rotate that, then add the other stuff. So trying to dissect what is important, what isn't, is a big part of animation for sure. But yeah.
I see. So for a piece like this, with the fish, you wouldn't necessarily start by drawing like a detail that fish. It would just be more like ovals, and then as they change shape and their movement, for this swirling part here as well, just kind of general shapes of movement, and then over time you would add more detail and add more fluidity to it as you go.
Yeah, that's a perfect example actually, because that I sort of made the waves, the big wave, big vortex in the center. I animated that first. Then everything that moves around it, I animated later. The fish were just ovals, as you said. So I tried to understand what volumes go where. So when it rotates to the camera, it's going to get thinner. And the scales and every detail, everything else goes at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta, yeah, segmenting the workload in some sensible way is always the best way to do it, in my opinion. But
I
yeah.
see. Yeah. Well, like I said, I have no clue how anyone keeps all of these ideas of fluidity and motion and perspective, especially when you're dealing with like even something like scales, just the way that they fold over each other at once. So segmenting it, as you said, yeah, that definitely like seems like the approach. I don't know what kind of a madman would go about actually doing it all at once, and that's probably not even like an effective way of going about it. I figure that actually makes it harder than anything.
I agree, it makes it harder, but you do have some months that are able to do it, but those are like really super experienced people who, as I said, been in this game for like 20, 30 years or something. But actually, I have one quick example that you might like. It's been from a workshop that I attended. Here you go. Quick
Sure.
link. For example, this is I had to animate dude walking. So you see like how I started with circle, then I made lines. Then we analyzed what we could squash, what we could move better.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, we started action. So you want the focus to be on the movement, and starting out with circles is always a great idea. So yeah.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, you would essentially. I mean, it's not all too dissimilar from anybody that paints figures, especially. You know, it's not like you're able to just draw the statue of David all in one go. Like, no, you got to start with the basic form, and then from there you just work layer by layer by layer.
100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's definitely what I advise to everyone, especially if you want to get into 2D animation, like segment your work. Think about stuff piece by piece. Don't try to take it all at once. It's a shit show if you try to do that, because you have to think about 25 things, from perspective to animation rules to how to make it look cool to how to keep the volumes correct to how to give character to it. It's just take it one step at a time, and literally starting with circles is the perfect way for most things. But yeah, I suffered a lot for multiple years when I could have like just listened to the people that were advising for my own benefit. I was a bit trying to do it still all at once. I don't know why. Now when I'm not doing that, everything's looking a lot better.
Right on, right on. And you said you do workshops. Is this like a regular part of your routine, or just a one-off that you did?
Oh no, I actually attend a lot of workshops. My colleagues usually have a lot of workshops that go on, so I go there to learn. But I do mentorships one-on-one for animation. I have a few students right now actually, and it's been also super fun to do. I don't know. It's super fun because they sometimes always someone that it started recently that I started mentorship, and I have currently like 4 or 5 people.
Oh wow.
And it's super crazy that every time someone surprises me with something totally new, which yeah, you'd guess that you can have everything prepared, but there's always a unique problem in 2D animating, I guess.
That's awesome. And do you find that that like mentors in animation are like a common staple? Like it's just part of the community?
I mean, I never been to a workshop when I started animating for like 3 years, maybe even 4. I don't know. But my first real workshop was 3 days, group workshop with Kenzie Thomas. He's a FX animator, ex FX animator for the Line Studio. And can't say in 3 days broke my brain. I think he gave so much. The advice was incredible. Like, I think the workshop was $200 or something. It was super worth it. He gave us homework and all that stuff, but the first workshop broke my brain. I was angry at myself because, yeah, I could have not suffered for like 2 years. I could have just went to a workshop, learned a ton of stuff about composition, about timing, about all kinds of different things. And yeah, I literally came after 3 days of the workshop. I came back to doing my stuff, and I already started doing it like at least 3 times better than I used to. So it is there is a culture of workshops to the animation. You gotta make it. You gotta pay for it. You gotta give something back in return. Like a lot of knowledge you can get for free, but a lot of really advanced knowledge you gotta learn. I guess you gotta also, when you learn it, you gotta exercise it like a fuck ton till you get good at it. But yeah, it's the same with people trying to find a mentor. Like, you gotta provide value back. Like, and when you do, then you have a really cool relationship going on and improving really well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great to hear because you know I've heard of like cases where people like in art school they'll have like when they're working on their thesis, they'll have someone that's like a PhD student or even a professor helping them out with their work or helping them guide it. But I didn't realize that animation had such like a close knit like family. You know, we're all in this together. We all recognize the struggle kind of feel to it.
Well, yeah. There are some discords or groups or forums. I think they all stick together like a lot. But mentorships are like really huge. I don't know if you're doing. I mean, I've got a master's in art and design, and I don't know. Part of me feels like I learned something there for sure. But if you want to get into 2D animation, I wouldn't really know what to suggest. Like this one workshop was already to me like a diploma. The second two were even crazier. I'm not sure if I would recommend someone. I think a lot of the schools are a bit overrated, and I hear that a lot of people agree with that. If you want to animate, just animate. In my opinion, go to workshops, meet people, go to conferences, go to festivals, hang out with people, that sort of stuff. Because you need to get a lot of groundwork. You need a lot of exercise, and I think schools, yeah, sure, like 2-3 years, not like 5-6 years to animate for sure. You gotta get into the fire as soon as you can. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's
In my opinion, at least.
No, fair enough, and it's just interesting that you mentioned that because that's basically the perspective that I've gotten from a lot of people that I've interviewed, a lot of artists that have also gone to school, and yeah, there's certainly like some benefits that they get from it, but realistically, like the real work only starts once you finish that, and you end up learning most of it on the way out of school, anyways. So like its benefits are debatable, but I find that most of the artists that I've spoken to, they're self-taught, self-trained. Like, yeah, they'll go to workshops, they'll network, and they'll go to cons and all this other stuff. But most of the actual experience happens outside of that.
I mean, coming from Europe, yeah, I'm still kind of okay with it, but at least from Croatia. But I imagine in the US or somewhere where you also have debt that you gotta pay. You're too young to understand what real debt even is. So, so what it means to be like 50K or 60K in debt, or even 100K, like Jesus. And I don't know, time is precious, and time is super precious, and I don't know how to use it best, but I think the sooner you so throw yourself into the fire, attend workshops, go to conferences, meet people, be a bit irritating, ask for advice. It's all great. But I think the one thing that helped me more than anything else was having a partner. So like I've had a few individual people when I started that are far more experienced than me, that gave me a shot because they knew I'd work a lot, I'd learn a lot, and they were in a position where they needed someone to help them out because they had overflow of work or something. And they basically want to know that those kinds of people that are really professional and really actually good human beings most of the time want to know you're not an asshole. Like, you're gonna do a deadline, you're gonna suffer through it, but you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it no matter what. And those kind of people, like, really, I don't know. If those people didn't give me a shot, I don't know where I'd be. So, but thankfully they did. And I still work with them today. And even if a huge gig comes up, while I have to do something with them, I'm still gonna do something with them. I have a feeling it's almost like an apprentice relationship where you have to pay your dues to the people that gave you a chance. I don't know. It's a really cool thing, and I think it's in a lot of like finding a partner, mentor, some sort of person that's gonna give you a shot, but you have to give something back, and that's gonna either be time or a lot of work, or for those chances, like you gotta pay your dues in some way. But
yeah, those can be some of the best experiences where you're not quite yet at like the level of like having a salary or your own business or anything like that. You're just starting out, and if you have the opportunity to work with people that, like, yes, they're like out of your range, but at least like they can throw you some like menial work that, like, as you said, if they're just overflowed with whatever, that you can at least help clean up or do something there. That being in that environment is ideal when you're like the skill ceiling is, you can see that it's like within your grasp if you give it enough time, but you're not quite there yet, so it gives you something to aspire to. And you're also working with someone that is like understanding of that because they've been where you're at. And having that opportunity is, it's key. I mean, it beats I would imagine it beats like many jobs for beginner animators when they come in. It's like, all right, well, you have a deadline. We need such and such frames or however else like they dole it out. And then, like once you finish that work, it's like, all right, well, that's it. Like as long as I just, keep up appearances and show up to the office or what have you, then that's it. As long as I just reach my minimum quota, then that's fine. But it's in
Yeah,
those
yeah.
relationships, like as you said, like where you actually have someone like a mentor, a partner, what have you, that you have the opportunity to do something a little bit more unique or something that really pushes you past your what you thought were your capabilities.
I mean, speaking from experience, like, I mean, even if you're on a salary going company or something, that's also a great place to find a partner or a mentor as well, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of so one huge thing from my own experience is that people really tend to be addicted to the concept of safety, especially job safety.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I think it's a lot of cultural illusion. Like you can still get fired, you can still lose your job, the random stuff can happen in your life.
Company could just shut
So
down.
what? Yeah, completely. I've experienced both that. I experienced all kinds of different ways all that shit can happen. But me personally, I found a lot of so-called security in the mentors and legit friends that I've made along the way of learning all this. But even more than that, the skills you will develop on your own. And when you build security in yourself and your skills and your proficiency, um, life seems a lot easier than being scared if you're going to get fired or if this client, that client. When you develop certain knowledge, you build some previous work that's been very successful. You're sort of building your own future and security. I think that's the only security you sort of have today in 2025. Um, so yeah, also having that sort of partner or mentor, really, if you don't fuck that up, like the world is your oyster. People like other people that aren't assholes, that can finish what they need to, but they're also like kind and normal people, I guess. So yeah.
No, absolutely. I totally understand what you mean. Because like for past generations, you worked in a company for the majority of your life, and that's who you depended on, and you'd get your bonus, vacation, what have you, and that was just kind of the way of the world. But nowadays, with how fast the world is moving, it's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen. Like if you're just starting out at a company, like you have no idea what that company's finances are like. You have no idea if somebody's skimming from the top or if there's some legal dealings that they have to deal with, like whether it's the government or some regulatory body or what have you. And then something that you think is stable could just be ripped out from underneath you the next day. And as you said, that's when having transferable skills will actually give you that proper sense of, not safety is not the right word for it, but like competence, I guess. Because if you,
Completely, yeah.
yeah, if you build yourself into a competent like person, and not even just like worker, but just as a person that has all these skills that you can rely on, well, it doesn't matter then who you work for. That you could take
Yeah.
those skills and just shop around elsewhere. And if one company goes down, okay, fine, we'll move on to the next one, or better yet, start your own thing. And that's that seems to be a fairly common theme, because like I'm doing this for a living currently, right? Doing interviews, but this isn't what I went to school for. not at all what I went to school for. My degree might as well be toilet paper, honestly. um, but thankfully, I've had the good fortune of being around the right people, where I can actually do this kind of thing for a living. And that's, like, as you said, going back to like transferable skills. It's it will keep you, um it'll keep you fed a lot more than like some letter on your resume or some degree, or what have you, or like where you worked and whatnot. It'll lead to a um much more satisfying life, I find.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And I mean, I still insist on the fact that I accentuate the fact I'm not an asshole, because a lot of stuff can be learned. Like, even if you don't have necessarily the knowledge to do some things, everyone can teach you. Like, we'll teach you, but if you're willing to learn and if you're not an asshole. So if those two things are there, like I said, like you have a good shot. You just gotta show that somehow. But yeah, completely. Uh, and also when people say like network, I think it feels a bit corny these days, like building your network. It sounds like super, like, I don't know, crypto bro. But actually building a reference of like building legit friends and people, either it's legit friends or really people that inspire you, that you genuinely ask, so how do you do this? I really want to know. Like, you're an inspiration of some sort to me, or I don't know. Those kinds of things are super beneficial. Like, if not even for work, it's good for mental health. So I definitely recommend building up a group of people around you that inspire you to do more. So I wouldn't know if I'd call that a network, but it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, no, that's certainly a network, and I totally get what you mean in how it's that idea of networking is perceived, especially on LinkedIn, because it
Oh yeah.
certainly, I mean, it certainly is. Like, I've been to events like tech or crypto or otherwise, where like they'll have a networking portion and everyone's just like constantly talking in the same kind of cadence, the same kind of tone, doing elevator pitches to every single new person that they meet, and it's just all so goddamn exhausting to be around that kind of energy, because it's like you feel like everyone's just selling themselves, which I
Oh
get.
yeah.
Like, everyone in this life has to sell themselves to an extent. um just something as simple as like making an impression. Well, you're selling yourself, to that person and telling them that, like, this is why I'm not a waste of your time. And I get that. That's a totally natural and necessary dynamic that we need to have. But
Yeah.
networking doesn't necessarily have to be like that. It could just be something as simple as like reaching out to someone, being like, hey man, I'm a big fan of what you do. I'd love to learn more if you have some time to talk about it. And you would be surprised, maybe not you specifically, because from your experience it sounds like this has worked out for you a lot, but people will be surprised just how often those messages actually do get answered, because there's like an endless amount of people that are more than willing to sit down for simple conversations and just explain like how they do their work and why they go about it that way, and the decisions they've made, and what success it's brought them, and what lessons they've learned. It's literally as simple as just reaching out to a DM, and 99% of the time they may not respond, but like that 1%, that could very well lead to something that could change the trajectory of your life in a way that you would have never thought of before.
Yep. I mean, also artists, especially artists, are a lot introverted. Some people might get it the wrong way. Get feel People that are extroverted a lot might feel like almost like it's insultingly introverted at some events and etc. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. My advice is always like contact people, talk to people. Like, you don't have to be a dick. You don't have to sell anything. Like, just go there, talk to people. You never know what might happen. Speak about your work. Listen to others while they're speaking. Grow an interest. Be a part of a community that does something. Show you can show your value that way really well. And the end goal doesn't have to like that's living life. Like if you love doing that, what your profession is, and you're hanging out with those people, providing value, being part of the community, and that sort of stuff, something positive's got to happen. So
Oh, absolutely,
I don't know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just as an example of that, we were talking about this off stream, but you were mentioning that you have your own collective that you've started here with your friends.
Oh yeah. So basically, I started interviewing artists back in 2022 because even then I realized like so many artists in the space, but also so many animators are underappreciated. I definitely want to talk to them. I also want to learn from them, and I was shocked by how many people said yes because I DM like super badass people. I was just like, hey, you want to come on, talk about what you do and how you do it. And they were like, yeah, hell yeah. And a few of them I was like, I can pay you, like please come over. And they were like, yeah, don't pay me, I'll come over for sure. Because I don't know, I think they noticed because I wasn't dragging a profit, we didn't have a hidden agenda. It's just like interviews for fun, talking to people, trying to learn. And from that was birthed collective of friends that are still together to this day, talking about art. We review each other's work. We have group chats. We have all that kind of fun stuff. But yeah, right now it's grown into something healthy, which is like really just artist friends. And I don't know. I have or something I want to plan and do, but when I get a bit more time, we'll do that as well. I hope. We had cool events. We had art critique events, critique your work. There was a reward for that. You'd get a MOVEIT mug. We'd have hangout sessions. We'd have software sessions about how someone does what. So I don't know. I tried to bring back value to the public through it, but also give value to me, but also give value to the person speaking somehow. So I don't know if I succeeded, but it's a fun journey. And I actually met a ton of people, and learned a lot. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to monetize everything. Like some stuff that you learn or the time that you get is monetization enough. So yeah.
Right on. I actually, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this artist right here that you guys interviewed, he actually did a showing at a gallery in Montreal. The owner of which I actually interviewed for this show.
Oh, Baku suburb.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baku. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Mathieu. Yeah. I've also exhibited with Baku in the suburbs. Yeah.
oh, nice.
Yeah. It's super crazy. I mean, we all know each other, sort of. It's been like close to 5 years, so we all know who's who. So at this point, but yeah, even Baku got into Baku, and I'm trying to reach out to a lot of people. But
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm really glad to hear that because that actually that doesn't surprise me that so many people were willing to come on. I mean it's basically the same show that we do here at Outsider Supply. We just DM artists, hoping to give them a platform to just talk about what it is that they do, and a surprising amount of them actually agreed to come on the show, and we've been really fortunate to have them spend that time doing that. And it's a wide range of people, from people that are actually painting by hand, digital artists like yourself, and everything in between. And they just sit down, talk about their process, and there's always something to be learned in that little window. Which I love about the art community, because even though like they're introverted and does take a little bit of time, especially at the beginning of the interview, for them to get comfortable. Totally understandable. I get it. But like once the ball is rolling and they get to explain their process like layer by layer and just talk about it, It's a great thing, man. I love to hear so much passion behind it, because a lot of these people, they only have like a handful, maybe couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand followers. They still have like a day job that they have to rely on for money for the most part. But they do it for the love of the game, and it's not often that you get to interact with people like that.
Yeah, definitely something inspiring there to me as well. I don't know. After interviews, I always get super hyped up because I hear a lot of fantastic thoughts about things I'd never guess to say. Yeah, completely agree with you there. I'm kind of sad. Like it's almost like we're seeing less and less of that. I love what you're doing as well. There used to be a lot more of this, but not a lot of stuff. I don't know. Uh, we've been since late 2022 on the thing, so there were some similar spaces going on and similar stuff, but a lot of them disappeared by now. So I love that someone keeps it alive to listen to artists and like talk to them. Definitely. And yeah, they're usually a really fantastic. I always learn a lot.
Yeah, like there was one that we interviewed. His name is Ben Sack. He's based in the U.S. He does these, larger than life pieces that have,
Oh,
yeah, an excruciating amount of detail. And I think he's into his 30s now, or at least he looked like it. Um, and he was talking about it not as like some like seasoned veteran, but you could clearly tell that he was in his stride. He understood his style. He knew how to time out all the different like layers and not get frustrated with the process, and just kind of trust that and go along. But it was really illuminating to hear his experience of like how he traveled the world, fell in love with all these different styles of architecture and history, and so he turned that into painting these giant pieces of city landscapes and in ultimate detail. And it was easily like one of the best conversations I've had. I'd say in my life, just because like you said earlier, just having that passion be vented from that person, talk about their experience, it is electrifying in a way. It's just it kind of fuels you. It just reminds you like, holy shit, like there's a lot of people that don't just do this as like some kind of a throwaway or hobby. They really put their life into it.
I mean, a big part of it is definitely like people forget you're living this one life and it goes by fast. Like you might think right now that there's a lot of time, but there actually isn't a shit ton of time. So I don't know. A part of me is like, why would you fuck around, get a bit more extra doing something that you fucking hate? Why not? So this dude that's doing all this crazy architecture stuff, like he seems to be having a lot of fun, enjoying the process. Something happens with it. He travels. He sees all this cool shit. I think that's a life worth living. And for me, it's like animation as well. Like you can't animate 24/7. You gotta live a life to animate better as well. You're bringing pictures to life, and you're making realities. Like it's it's super rewarding. Like to me, I'm less and less scared of death the more I'm doing the stuff that I enjoy doing. If you know what I mean. Um,
Mm.
in the same way. So I think that's super dope. Um, I definitely think there's something there because people forget like you're living your one life and time is super precious. And don't waste like on shit necessarily. Like I don't know, I don't know. But a lot of people think that there's happiness at the end of some torturous job or something, and this stuff's gonna change, but it usually doesn't. Like you either gotta do something crazy and like risk it a bit, and it's not necessarily advice. A lot of the times you'd be shocked to see how well it works out sometimes.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean, if
yeah,
yeah,
I hear you.
if me as a little lifer, born next to a village in little Croatia, can still like animate for some cool shit. Like you can do whatever you want to do, I'm pretty sure. Just a bit of bravery and trying to do the shit. So yeah. That's partly why I'm a bit mad at the AI because there's been a lot of people I have to console to tell them like just animate, do your shit, like don't be afraid. Like yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that sentiment from a handful of artists, but most that I've spoken to, thankfully, have like come away from the perspective like, look, it's just yet another tool. It's the new wave, and there's no stopping it. So any attempts to like be upset about it or anything is just it's kind of futile, and you have to recognize that like now we live in a different world. Now, in my opinion, that actually, and I've mentioned this on the show before, that actually puts a premium on anybody that is able to prove that their work was made by them and them only, or them and their team, or whomever, but just people at the end of the day. Because with the amount of AI content that's going to be pushing out, well, that is pushed out. It's already eclipsed the amount of man-made content that we've ever made since the dawn of time. But as this kind of accelerates, it's just going to propagate into more and more spaces, from advertising to the shows that we watch to the websites that we use, anything and everything. And anybody that is able to make something of their own, and you can tell that it's bespoke, it's very unique, it is very central to the artist's vision, that's just automatically going to have a lot more value on it. So anytime I hear about like artists being discouraged regarding AI, it's I think it's a silly way of going about it, just because look, like at the end of the day, right, when the DSLR came out, film, like people that were using film that were like seasoned veterans, they weren't like, oh my god, the industry's dead, that's it, anyone can take a photo now, like it doesn't matter. It's like, no, film still has unique properties that DSLRs cannot emulate, no matter how hard they try. I'm sure you can make some great Photoshop edits, but it's still not going to have that same kind of clarity, that graininess to it, the different color quality and all that. And so there's always going to be a space for it. Now, is that space going to shrink? Is it going to be like less viable? Is the equipment like prices going to change? Like, yeah, sure, all these changes are going to come about, but it's not going to kill it. Like radio is not
Yeah.
dead. Radio is still around, and there was a time when people were like, "Oh my god, the internet's here, radio's dead. Like, there's no point." Like, no, it's there's still plenty of people working in that space. So you just have to adapt and just keep being your genuine self and keep pushing forward. Otherwise, like giving up, I mean, what? Okay, so what? Like when the car came out, everybody that was riding horses was like, "All right, well, that's it. We gotta get rid of all of them. That's it." Like, no, obviously not. There's still a budgeting industry of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd even go further because recently I interviewed a really, really fantastic animator that worked for One Piece, and like really insanely talented. They call her Orange. That's her nickname. She had actually a wonderful few notes there. She was like, in case you're scared, she was a bit rough about it, but I think it's a good way to think about it. Like, if you're scared about what AI is currently producing, that she'd suggest rethinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it, because there's a lot that goes into quality animation, thinking about stuff, or a lot of creative work that isn't easily replicable by AI. Or not even for the general public, it might. For someday in the future, it might. But she still doesn't see it like taking over anything. So her suggestion is just like working more and trying to understand what parts of what you do can be easily replicated, I guess. So I definitely agree with that. And I had a lot of people ask me, like, is it good to have a plan B? So I want to do animation or I want to do art, but is it good to have a plan B? To a bit younger people. And I usually said, like, yeah, it is. It's a good thing. But it definitely also increases your chances of not succeeding. because because you have then that mental roadblock, like unless you're going all in on thing, you're not going to be good enough as someone who's all in. Like he's gonna get that job, that gig. He's gonna get a lot of the stuff because he's all in. That's another thing to think about, I guess. But yeah, for AI, personally, I'm not sort of scared because still, to me, and I know it's not a popular opinion, but it's still averaging down its training data into something that we could call unique. But building something unique is very hard. And then animating goes like from frame mixing to secondary action to anticipation to all kinds of different rules. You gotta squash and stretch a lot of stuff that AI isn't really fundamentally understanding, but it's copying from the source material it has, which fortunately for 2D animation, there isn't as much source footage as it is for like a video of a person walking or something. It does those great because there's a lot of footage that does that. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm still sort of skeptical about the way it's evolving. I'm not saying it's not useful. There's a lot of application that it is for medicine, ChatGPT, a lot of different things. But I think I'd suggest to artists to find something. For example, in animation, you're not easily placeable because there's a lot of rules, a lot of quality stuff you gotta be aware of. But for example, for book covers with some publishers, yeah, maybe you're out of a job because no one really cared about those covers. If it's a lot of business books that no one's gonna look at the cover or something, then yeah, maybe it's not gonna work out. But even there, if you want to be unique, have the coolest cover, it's probably gonna be handmade because you're gonna have to create something unique, which is hard, very hard to do. But yeah, in the end, the tool that you use together doesn't really matter. But yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
rambled on a bit. Yeah, sorry.
No. By all means, this is this is the show for it. So feel free to ramble. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm 100% in agreement that that, as you said, like having a plan B, it can kind of kneecap you because you're kind of you're not going all in, and you're thinking, okay, well, at least I have the like this kind of fallback. So like when it comes to AI, like, yeah, I mean, it's a good idea of like to know like where the market is headed or what kind of tools are existing, but like realistically, you're much better off just spending the time with your head down and working and pumping out content. Because no matter how good it gets, you know, as we've said before, like there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be a market for whatever AI can quote unquote like replace. There's always going to be a market where somebody can come along and say, hey, like, yeah, I can do that, but I can actually do it like much better, and it's actual like stylized to my personal aesthetic. There's always going to be room for that. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be until AI can make like a movie like Akira, which I mean, just the behind the scenes footage that I've seen from them animating this, it is I have no words. I absolutely have no words. The scenery, every single frame is hand painted. Even just something as simple as like the cityscape. I don't know how you'd be able to make a masterpiece like this, especially for the time in 1988. That can even come close. I mean, the Akira slide is so infamous that there's like an endless amount of movies and shows that emulate it. I don't know if something like that can be made with AI to have like that same kind of cultural impact.
Yep. Completely agree. I mean, in the end, the market say maybe the general public doesn't even need quality. Maybe we really realize that kind of shitty is totally okay, and that's cool too. That ends up happening. Like, why would someone overdo it if the public doesn't want it? But maybe I'm still a bit skeptical because I think they do. a lot of the shows that are Emmy award winning, a lot of the favorite audience awards, a lot of stuff that I keep on seeing is usually handmade, and it's done in a way where it isn't like another important fact for me is like, how are you going to be the originality, the creativeness that you get? You get it from practice and repetition. The craft itself opens up a space for you to think about how to do stuff differently than it's been done before. So you know what I mean. But if you're just prompting your whole life and you didn't like put in the craft into doing the thing, you don't even know what you're doing. Like, you're not really aware of why the composition is the way it is. You're maybe not aware of all the rules because you might have been prompting, and it's a lot harder to make some risky or unique choices, if you know what I mean. Because you're maybe not even aware of currently looking at. Now, because when you understand composition, when you understand color, when you understand animation and all these kinds of different things, it opens you a bit more room to break rules in unique ways. But when you're generating stuff, you might not be totally aware of even what's changeable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the same amount of craft you put in, your eyes get better, your mind understands it better, and it's easier to change it into something unique. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it certainly does. It certainly does. And
like,
I mean,
how do you like how do you a dumb example, how do you fix a PC if you how do you build I don't know how to explain it better, but yeah, you have to be aware. So if you have intent, so I'm gonna make this blue, why am I gonna, why isn't it red? Why does this appear here on the page and not there? All these decisions end up being impactful in storytelling a unique approach. For example, Arcane background is 2D. The characters are 3D. The characters have 2D painted normal maps on them, and the FX is 2D. AI won't, like, when you do animations in 3D, you realize the shading is a bit meh, but not that great. So you're gonna hand paint the texture to the 3D models. The backgrounds, you realize, could be more affordable actually to make them in 2D, but do sort of a parallax because you've been doing them a lot, so you know sort of what's efficient. For the FX, you're gonna realize 2D has a bit more graphical look to it. I've done a lot of 2D FX, so I could maybe add this here, and that's how creative decisions are made. Like, without you having experience doing all these things, I don't know how you make, if you get me, like, how could you make those decisions unless you have experience?
yeah, absolutely. It goes back to that idea of animators having to keep like a dozen different things in their heads at once as they're looking at different, like the movement, how the background goes, perspective, and all that. It's if you hand that off to AI, you're just kind of at its whims, and you're hoping that the prompting or what have you, or that the model that is trained will have those things in mind, but that's not necessarily always the case. And that might be good enough for, like, as you said, like just like some shitty textbook or some corporate video or just anything to save that person some money and time and effort. But realistically, when it comes to crafting something that will live on for generations, right, something that will be a lasting piece that will leave a significant impact on people, whether it's emotionally or culturally, it's hard to see AI not necessarily be involved in that, but like be able to do that from start to finish. I mean, like the closest example that I could think of, this is one of the more famous ones. I think it was called Secret Wars. It was a Marvel show, or not Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, where they were. I think it was among the first times that they, for their intro, they used.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, there's this huge scandal where people are like, "Oh my god, instead of hiring animators, they decided to do this." And it's like, "Oh, it's Disney. Like what do you expect? It's a big corporation." Um but like realistically, like the show sucked. It was awful. Like it
Yeah,
I know the
and
script I know the script
go
wasn't
ahead,
written by
sorry.
ChatGPT, but it might as well have been because I really wish that I could get back the time that I wasted watching the few episodes that I did because it was just absolutely awful. And the intro has its own style and it was like kind of unique, but like as I said earlier, like it's not leaving a lasting impact. It's not really making anyone years down the line be like, oh man, remember that show? Like no, people forgotten about it. Everyone's moved on from it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the same with Akira. So Akira isn't only like people all the time talk about how everything was handmade, how every little detail was handmade, and how that's crazy. But the craziest part isn't just that it's handmade. It's that there's intent in everything they did. So
Hmm.
the bike is a certain design, and it has a reason why. The movements have a certain design. There's a reason why. The backgrounds, the everything. There's a sort of logic. Even in Miyazaki movies, when you see a main character running, the design of the space, someone took and drew a top-down design of what a house looks like. How are we gonna explain to the viewers where the character is currently at? Where's the bathroom? Where's the entrance? What's going on there? So how do we explain that? So intent is what I'm thinking about the most, and AI really can do that, in my opinion. It can sort of generate some sort of pretty pictures, but a lot of the context you gotta still people have to do that. So it's the intent behind it all. So in my opinion, at least, and I don't know. I'm really grateful for the job that I'm doing, and I think there's a lot of good future ahead in it. Even more and more, even more.
Oh, absolutely. I
'Cause,
mean, it's
yeah,
gotten so much easier to use these tools. There's an endless amount of tutorials. There's an endless stream of people like yourself that are willing to sit down and just discuss like the tips and tricks and what you've learned from people. There's all these workshops, whether it's digital or in person. I mean, we've we really are lucky to live in a time where we've seen this explosion of access to this. I mean, like if you told people 30 years ago, like you're gonna be an animator, you would have been laughed out. Like your family would have disowned you, unless you happen to live
yeah,
in a culture that was more accepting of it. Um, but like realistically, this is not something that people thought of as a career, and now we live in a time where, like, yeah, you could actually just like to have a Patreon or a GoFundMe to fund a project based on a trailer and have a whole community come around it. Um, there's just this kind of gilded age that we're going through, and AI is certainly a part of it, but like nonetheless, there are still so many people out there that are just making cool and awesome stuff that are willing to collaborate and work with one another that it just creates this explosion of opportunity.
yeah. I think even crazier than AI or any other phones. Even crazier technological advance to me is like you can join a Discord server and learn everything about animation, find PDFs, or there's so much information if you're consistent, if you're not gonna lose like 6 hours on YouTube. But if you want to learn something, you totally can today, and that's even more empowering to me, like even more than AI or anything. Like you can literally learn anything online. I think that's super crazy. And in 2D, I'm seeing an explosion, a boom of like a ton of people getting into it, a ton of super talented people, and it's all like, I don't know, super inspiring to me. But yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I think I'll have to go now.
Oh, that's quite all
I
right.
got
I totally
meeting.
get it
Yeah,
with the time difference and everything. I totally understand.
yeah. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, it was a
But
pleasure
yeah,
to have you.
yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, of course. So in terms of socials, people can find you at that the Hyena Art on Twitter and also your store there on Foundation. Is the link also up on your socials or?
No, but you can find the Hyena art, the same Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And you can
Beautiful.
find all the rest of the links somewhere there. But yeah,
Fantastic. Well, yeah. Thanks again for joining. I really appreciate you making the time. I wish you nothing but the best of luck with your future work and also with the collective. I love that you guys are giving a space for fellow artists like yourself to come on. I love to see that, man. I love the community making.
thank you so much, man, and likewise. Good luck to Outsider Supply and you, Mark, as well. All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Take care.